Hello and welcome back to my channel. As always, I am Matt from Cleveland Sex Therapy. I'm a licensed clinical therapist and A-Sex certified sex therapist. Today, I thought I would get a little up close and personal with all of you. A part of my life that I don't really keep secret is my involvement in the polyamorous community. As someone who is polyamorous, I wanted to take some time to talk a little bit about my journey and also clear up any misinformation and misconceptions that exist about this perfectly healthy relationship style. As someone who grew up in the United States, I, like most humans, grew up learning that monogamy was the only choice. So as I go through this journey today with all of you, you're going to see how I handled that and how I navigated unlearning monogamy and learning polyamory. So let's do a quick refresher on polyamory. If you want a more in-depth look at it, feel free to check out this video here. But in short, polyamory can be used in a couple of ways. One, it can be used as an umbrella term. So if you think about it like monogamy has monogamy, and then polyamory is called polyamory, and it's also called ethical non-monogamy, and it's also called consensual non-monogamy. But where it can get confusing is that polyamory is also sort of a structure within consensual non-monogamy. So when you talk to people who say they're polyamorous and they want to provide you more information, it's totally okay to ask them a little bit more about it. But essentially what polyamory or ethical non-monogamy means is that relationships can involve more than one person. Intimacy and love can be shared with just more than one individual. So exclusivity in the sense of monogamy is not really upheld in polyamory. There's an openness and fluidity that's involved. So polyamory and the poly lifestyle has existed just as long as monogamy, and in fact, indigenous cultures practice polyamory, but due to puritanical religions and sex negativity, our society as we know it today really only adopted monogamy. Poly people can identify themselves in a number of ways. They can be open, they can be swingers, they can be hierarchical, they can engage in relationship anarchy, just to name a few. So whatever feels the most comfortable for you, that's what you're going to express. For me, poly did not come easy. I grew up in the Midwest, Ohio to be precise, and I grew up in a religious household, a Catholic household. My siblings and I were forced to go to Mass every Sunday, and I like to say forced because that's what it felt like. I think my parents were trying to do a good job of instilling religion into us, but it just, the way they went about it, I don't know what it was, it just didn't work. None of my siblings at the time of this recording are religious. I think one may be spiritual, but yeah, we're all sort of atheists or agnostics. Also, like most Midwesterners, I played sports. And I quickly learned that if I got really good at sports, I did not have to go to church on Sunday. Because what would happen is you would play tournaments on the weekends and the championships were usually on Sunday. And because Mass was on Sunday, if I got to the championships, the fact of going to Mass, it probably wouldn't happen because I had to go and play in the championships. So that's what I did. I got very good at tennis, and I'd be lying if I said that a part of the reason why I got really good at tennis was because I didn't want to go to Mass on Sunday. It wasn't the only factor, but it definitely had some influence. I never really connected to Catholicism, probably due to my sexual orientation. I realized at a very young age that I was attracted to same sex, the same gender. And if you know anything about Catholicism, they are not too keen on homosexual activities or the lifestyle. Why I think this is really important to explain to all of you is because growing up gay in the 90s and early 2000s really made me feel like I had to hide myself and that I shouldn't rock the boat in any way. So once I entered high school, which was an all-male Catholic high school that I was forced to go to, I made sure that I butched myself up, became very masculine, and used my white privilege, my height privilege, I'm very tall, I'm 6'4", and my ability to be good at sports to create a cover over me for protection. It was as if I was hoping people would look past my gayness due to me being an all-star athlete at this school so that I wouldn't have to be threatened or bullied. But that's not to say that I wasn't horrendously bullied my freshman year, because I was. Bullying started to fade away some as I started to make my mark in sports, but the impact was there and the internalized heterosexism was living within me. Brief note here, internalized heterosexism is something that queer people have to deal with all the time. Essentially, it's really hard for us to grow into our queer selves because the dominant beliefs of heterosexuality are constantly shoved down our throats. Right? Heterosexuality is the dominant sexual orientation. Our world is really built around that sexual orientation and the belief structures. And so it's really hard for us as queer people to grow into what feels like our queer, authentic selves because we're living in a world made for heterosexuals. Because of this, I, like most people, believe that monogamy was the only structure because that is what is prominent in the heterosexual world, really in the world in general. But we'll talk a little bit more later about how queer people have a little bit more flexibility, but I didn't know that. So I just thought monogamy was it. So that's what I did. During college, was an extremely liberating experience for me. I went to a small Division III Midwestern liberal arts college right on the outside of Cleveland, and to say that I really opened up and flourished would be an understatement. I opened up parts of myself that I had locked away in high school, engaged in a lot of my feminine energy, and it felt really good. That version of Matt from ages 18 to 28 went through so many evolutions, right? Graduating college, and then moving out of state for grad school for 4.5 years, moving down to rural South Georgia, which talk about me having to hide my identity a little bit more, not as much as I did in high school. But then moving back to Cleveland in 2016 and really reconnecting with family and friends, I learned so much about who I was and my values as a human. At this time, I still believed in monogamy and never once considered polyamory. In fact, I really didn't even know what poly was at the time. I mean, I had several hookups and I had 2 relationships at the time, and I just thought, it's okay, Matt. You're just gonna wait for Prince Charming, for Mr. Right to come along and sweep you off your feet. You know, I would tell myself, don't put yourself out there and have too much sex, right? Don't waste that energy. Really save it for somebody. If I met that version of Matt today, I would give him the biggest hug in the world and tell him that his life was about to change. In November of 2016, I went on my first date with my current partner, Jim, and little would I know, my life would drastically change over the next few years. Our relationship started like most people's relationships. Sex was great, emotional connection was there, and we were navigating any sort of struggles that people would have as they go through new relationship energy. This was also the time that I connected with sex therapy. I was just like a baby therapist at this time, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I remembered that I had a course in sex therapy and thought, this is really cool. And so at this same exact time, I started learning more about sex therapy and started my journey towards becoming a certified sex therapist. This is also when I started getting exposed to many concepts that a lot of therapists do not get exposed to, like kink, out-of-control sexual behavior, and different relationship structures like polyamory. Life was good. And then all of a sudden, a Betty Who concert changed everything. Also, if you like this video and sort of like this sex positive content, please subscribe. Also comment. This really helps me grow this page into something that I really want it to be, which is just connecting and spreading sex positivity in this world. So my partner and I and a few friends went to a Betty Who concert in the summer of 2017. At this time, we were dating for around 9 months and the relationship was good. We had some hurdles and conflict that we were navigating, but it was pretty solid. After the concert, we got home and I realized that something was up with my partner. It looked like he had something on his mind. As we were getting ready to go to bed, my partner sprung on me that he wanted to open up our sex life and he wanted to explore what an open relationship would look like. To say I was devastated would be an understatement. I mean, I cried. And not just like how I cried when Charmed was canceled after 8 seasons. I was guttural crying. I don't know what it was. I was so confused. My partner was sitting there and telling me that he loved me so much and that he did not want to break up with me. But he was also telling me that he was not fully satisfied with sex and wanted more from it. I also don't think the several vodka sodas that we both had helped us in this conversation, but you can't really control those things. After reassuring me that he did not want to break up, we fell asleep in each other's arms and decided to tackle it another day. Well, the next morning came and I'm sure we had a conversation, but I don't really remember that. Our brains do this from time to time. It protects us from unwanted memories that we have that it thinks our bodies can't handle. And so I'm sure we had a conversation. I just do not remember it whatsoever. That also could have been the vodka sodas. What I do recall is that this was not easy. This Prince Charming fantasy that I had, this person I was going to be with for 100 years, just us two, is being shattered. I was thinking polyamorous relationships don't work. This is just for people who want to cheat on their partners or who are afraid of commitment. Why doesn't he just break up with me? This wasn't making any sense to me, and although I was learning to become a sex therapist, I was still new to understanding the concepts of poly. So as a therapist, as someone who worked with couples, I was like, buddy, we're going to couples therapy. We found our first therapist, a delightful older man who is not queer, who is monogamous. And after 2 sessions, although he was great, we decided, no, we're not going to go to him anymore. So we thought, okay, we gave this a shot. Our sex life was staying relatively the same, and we just sort of started avoiding the topic, right? Which I would later find out as a poly specialist is something that a lot of people do. So I truthfully don't know what it was. It was probably this influence of sex positivity and really opening up my mind to new relationship structures. But I really cared about my partner and I did not want this relationship to end. So I decided, let me use my resources to learn more about polyamory and let's just dive into it. What I was beginning to learn was that polyamory and monogamy are not that different from each other. One of the main differences is that poly allows for fluidity when it comes to relationships, and monogamy really requires exclusivity, especially sexual exclusivity, which is the kind of monogamy that humans practice. But both of them promoted open communication, mutual respect, trust, and honesty. So our relationship began to stagnate. We would go through these ups and downs. We would have really blow up arguments about our sex life and polyamory. So we decided that we should look for another therapist, this time finding someone who was a specialist in polyamory. We soon found another therapist, a very competent therapist, a very great therapist, and we began to open up and be vulnerable and really challenge structures in our relationship that felt inhibiting to us. We spent session after session breaking down the concepts of love and relationships. There were a lot of tears and frustrations. I mean, when you think about it, we were talking about poly, right? We were trying to understand poly in our new relationship structure, but we were also unearthing a lot of dark shit from our past relationships, and even within our relationship that we really avoided. So it was very intense, to say the least. We eventually got to a space that we were comfortable with. And so we decided that we were going to do a very traditional looking open relationship, which means that we could have sex with other people, but there was no dating involved, no real emotional vulnerability with other people, just more sexual connection. And then we decided to act upon it. Since then, we haven't looked back. I would say that we were lucky, but I also think luck is involved in a lot of things in life, when in reality, with that small amount of luck, a majority of it was we worked our asses off at this. We put in the time and energy to deconstruct monogamy and build up polyamory. Have there been times where I question if he loves me or finds me attractive? Yeah, there are definitely times like that, but that has nothing to do with being open or polyamorous. That is just a part of our relationship and how we need to continue to talk to one another and be vulnerable and open and check in. I titled this video Why I Chose to Be Poly because I want to share my journey with all of you, and why at the end of the day, I evolved and unlocked, however you want to look at it, a version of myself that feels very free. Could we go back to monogamy? Could I go back to monogamy one day? Maybe, but I don't see that happening. But who knows? You may see a video one day that says, why I chose to go back to monogamy. And if that's the case, I am sure I will walk you through all of the reasons why I chose to do that, but don't hold your breath. All right, that's all I got. I hope you enjoyed, a little bit more of this personal content. So if you want more of it, please like and comment and let me know that you want more of it. So until next time.